and I'll actually turn off the transcription. Okay. So let me just start the presentation there. So just bear with me a second, everybody. We're almost good to go. Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Alan Joyce. I'm the AEOI Training Manager here with Regnology, and welcome to the annual FI Plenary Refresher on the AEOI portal. So just some house rules before we proceed into the demonstration. So all cameras to be turned off, microphones to be muted. If at any stage you have a question, please enter the question into the chat. And what we will do is that we will leave time at the end and we will go through all the questions at the very end. Okay, so there's no need to come off mute. I just want to get through all the topics, but you feel free to type in any questions you may have into the chat, and we'll leave time at the end to deal with all the questions. We'll also take a copy of all the questions. I'll put them into a Word document with responses, and I will send them back to the competent authority as well, and they will be able to share with you afterwards. So, as I said, the session will be recorded. That recording will be made available to Andrew and the team at the competent authority, and they will share it with you afterwards as well. Okay, so what are we going to take a look at today? So we're going to take a look at the enrollment into the portal for any reporting entity, including the TDTs and NRFIs, the non-reporting financial entities. We will take a look at the login and creation of secondary users in the portal, and we will take a look at the creation and submission of manual CRS filings, CRS XML filings, creation and submission of FATCA filings, the change of reporting entity information, how to amend data in an existing CRS filing, how to change your reporting obligations. We're also going to take a look at the creation and the submission of undocumented accounts, creation and submission of CRS filing summary, take a look at the document library, and also in terms of the enrollment for CBC, the Article 3 notification, the creation and submission of CBC XML filings, change of primary user, FATCA nil filing, and then we'll leave the quick Q&A at the end. So these are all the topics that we're actually going to take a look at in the presentation today. So without further ado, let me just escape that and let me go into my portal. And I'm just going to refresh the screen because sometimes it does just time out. And let me just pull something up here on the side so I have it there if required. Okay, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit just to make that a little bigger for everybody. I think that shouldn't affect the quality of what we're seeing as well. So, to enroll in the AEOI system, you have to complete this public enrollment form. And the link from this is available off the Tax Authority website. So, in here, we're going to enter in the name of the institution. So I'm just going to make up something here. As you can see, Apple Bank Limited. Now here we choose the reporting type. So we select the drop-down arrow. I'll pick CRS. Now if I wanted to report for FATCA as well, I click Add, and then you can see here I pick FATCA. Now if I selected one by mistake, then I can click Delete like this. Okay, but I'm just going to put this back in, and I can select FATCA like that. Now, here, and I'll come back to this later in the demonstration. So, is a CRS non-reporting financial institution? Okay, you either have the option yes, okay, or we can go no here. Okay, so in this example, we'll say no. We choose the entity type, and then we'll pick one of these entity types here. So for the purpose of the demonstration, I will choose custodial institution. We will then enter a GIN. Okay, so we'll put in a GIN here, So let me just make a couple of adjustments here. And then we also enter the fiscal year end. So we put in the fiscal year end like that then. Now here we have to enter in our registered office address, and you can see the red asterisks, they all indicate mandatory fields here. So inside here we will enter in our details. So bear with me while I'm just typing in some of the details here, and we'll just enter in, just to have something extra in here, and we'll just add in. And then we'll put in the primary user information. So for every entity that is enrolled into the system, there has to be a primary user. So this information needs to be submitted on this initial enrollment form. So inside here, I'm going to put in my own details just for the purpose, again, of the demonstration. So, and then we'll just add in our numbers here. So telephone number. We also need to put in a position, so we put in financial controller, and then on the requested documentation, okay, so we can see here we need to add a letter signed by the director. So we use that option, click upload, and then we should be able to put in our PDF here like this. And if you wish to delete it, click the bin icon and you can upload the correct attachment if required. If you wanted to upload any other documentation, click add and you can select another one here. But for the initial enrollment, the letter signed by director will suffice. So let me click delete, and now I want to click submit. So just before I click submit, so you can see here on the enrollment form, we have to enter the name, we choose the reporting type, we state whether it's a non-reporting financial institution, we choose the entity type, we've entered in the GIN, fiscal year end, our address, and we also have to specify the primary user information. And on the documentation, we need to select the letter signed by the director as well. So once we have all that information in, let me click submit. That will submit that enrollment form. And what will happen now is that the primary user will receive an email notification informing them that they've been just enrolled into the system, where they will get a temporary password to log in to the portal. So let me just bring up my emails here. Now, I've already set up one. So they'll receive an email, something similar to this. Okay, so they'll say you've been assigned access to a reporting entity, and you will get a link to the portal URL. Your email is your username, and then you'll get a temporary password as soon as you use to log in. So with the portal, we'll just log in just so you can see it. So we'll enter in our details in here, and we log in. Now, mine is a little bit different because I'm using it for multiple entities. So when you log in initially, you will put in that temporary password, and then you will be asked to change it straight away. Okay, so just be aware that on the very initial enrollment, when you log into the system, you use your temporary password, and then straight away you will replace it with a new password then. So inside here, I can see Apple Bank. Let me click login. And now I'm logged in as Apple Bank into the portal. Now I'm just going to reduce the zoom here so you can see the menus fully going across the top. So that's the initial enrollment. Now I'm actually just going to open up another enrollment form. Okay, so let me just go enrollment here. And I'll just close this tab, so just bear with me. Okay. Now, in this enrollment, what we want to do is we want to enroll as a TDT, a trustee documented trust. Now, this one is slightly different. So if you're going to enroll as a TDT, okay, you must be enrolled as a reporting entity already. Okay, so if, let's say, and I'm going to use Apple Bank as the example. So I'm logged into the portal, okay, and I have my enrollment form open on another tab. Now, this is really important if you're going to enroll as a TDT. So in the portal, go to Reporting Entity Management. And inside here, you will see a link for your reporting entity profile. So let me click on this link. And there's some really important information you're going to need in here for this, okay? So we're going to need our identification number, okay? You can see it up here, and we'll also need the entity name. Now I'm going to show you why in a minute. So let me come back to the enrollment form. So you see here now, we're back to our public enrollment. We'll put in our reporting entity name. So we'll just put in Orange Trust. Reporting type, we'll say CRS. So again, CRS non-reporting financial institution, we'll say no. Now we have the entity type here. Now notice in the drop down, there is an option here for trustee documented trust. So when we select this, and before I select it, take a look at these two fields here. See the trustee FI name and the trustee FI identification number. So here on the entity type, select trustee documented trust. Now notice these two fields. See the way they have become active. So I'm going to enter in a GIN here. So let me just put in a GIN and I'll just adjust that. Fiscal year end. Now, where do I get the trustee FI name and the trustee FI identification number? And if I go back to my portal, and you can see here, see the entity code. So I'm going to take the entity code, okay, and that's my identification number. If I go back to my portal again, there's my name, bring it back in, okay, and we put in Apple Bank. So when you're enrolling as a trustee documented trust, okay, as soon as you select the option here, these two fields will become active, and the details that you want are on the reporting entity management page in the portal. So if you log in as the reporting entity in here, then you can get these two fields which you need for the trustee documented trust enrollment. So we're going to enter in our address again. So just bear with me while we put in our, trustee FI must be invalid of an FI number. Oh, why is that coming up like that? Let me just go back here for a second. Yeah, that looks fine. Let me just type that in. This should have come in fine there. Bear with me, everybody. Sometimes I might just put in a space. It really doesn't like that. Okay. Okay, and in the country, we'll put in Bahamas. Okay, and again, we'll put in our user information again. So let me just, so even though it's a TDT, we still need to put in this information. All this mandatory information must be completed inside in the enrollment form. So let me just enter in our details here. So just complete this. And again, we need to have the letter signed by the director again. So let me just upload this. Again, we have all our information in place. Click submit. And that should submit now to the competent authority, okay, for a TDT, okay? And again, what will happen is that the primary user, okay, will receive probably an email similar to this one saying that it's been assigned, okay, to a new entity. You can see here on the email, you've been assigned to the reporting entity, Orange Trust, okay? So there's the first two enrollments that we had to do. We had a regular reporting entity enrollment for CRS and FATCA, and then we had the TDT enrollment. Now I'm just going to do one more enrollment in this section, and then what we'll actually do later on is we'll do a CBC one as well. So let me just close this tab, and we'll just open up another public one here. So on this one, Okay, I'm actually just going to log out of Apple Bank here. Okay, so just bear with me a second, everybody. And I'll log out. And then I'm going to log back in. I'll just refresh my enrollment page. Just want it as a clean enrollment. So just, yeah, perfect. Okay, now we want to do a CRS non-reporting financial institution enrollment. So inside here, we're going to type in our name of our institution. So we'll put in CRS. Now here, CRS non-reporting financial institution, we say yes. Okay. Now inside here, you'll notice that when you select a yes for a non-reporting financial institution, the options here are different. So I'll just come back to no so you can see the difference. So you see when it's no, you see custodial, depository, and so on. When I select yes, we can see international organization, pension fund, and so on in here as well. So I'm just going to pick one of these entities here. Okay, we complete out the rest of the information. Again, I'm just going to make a change here. We have our fiscal year end. We're going to put in our address here. So let me just put that in, and we'll pick our country. And again, we'll put in our primary user information again in here. So we'll just enter in all this information in here. So again, we complete our mandatory fields. Financial controller, letter signed by the director, and we click submit. So just be aware of this one here. So if you're going to enroll as a CRS non-reporting financial institution, here you select yes, and then you select the entity type then from the options below. Once we complete out the rest of the fields, we click submit, just X that, and that completes the enrollment for our CRS non-reporting financial institution. Now, as I said, we are going to take a look at the CBC enrollment later in the presentation. Let me just expand. I just want to check on the chat there for a second. I'm not going to answer any questions. I just want to see, can everybody hear me? Yeah, okay, we'll come back to any of those type of questions. Yeah, I just wanted to check that everybody can still hear me. Okay, that seems to be fine. Okay, so we've now completed 3 different types of enrollments. So what we want to do is we're going to log into our portal, and we're going to take a look at the option of secondary users. So let me just log into our portal here. So as you saw, when you enroll, there needs to be a primary user. And when that primary user logs in for the first time, they have to change their temporary password to a different password. Now, you can see here, you can have the same primary user for multiple entities. That's perfectly fine in the system. So let me go to Apple Bank here, and I'll just log in. And what we can see here is we have our portal screen, and we have notifications appearing. Now, I have lots of notifications appearing here because I've been using the same email from multiple institutions. And when you see them, you can actually just click see the little checkbox like that, and that will just remove them from the actual home page. So you can see how easy it is to remove any of these notifications from the screen. So I'm not going to worry too much about that at this moment in time. Now, you can set up a secondary user in the system. So let's say you've been created as the primary user, but you also want people to be able to work as secondary users who can complete CRS filings or complete FATCA filings. So under the administration tab here, so when we click on it, okay, I'll just minimize that. So we can see there's an option to create a new user. So here, if I click create new user, And you see the option here. So I can create a secondary user. So inside here, so I'm going to put in an email or a user here. I must tick the FATCA and CRS secondary user. If you click on it, it will give you a tab to see all the form sets that you have access to, reporting entity profile. You see you can also look at creating FATCA, manual XML, CRS, manual XML, change of reporting obligations, filing summary, and primary user change notice. So there's not huge differences between a secondary user and a primary user. You can see your functionality access as well here. So I'm going to click X on that. I'm going to click Create. And you can see now that creates the secondary user in the system. And they will receive an email, okay, where they get their temporary password, they log into the system, and then they have to change the password, and then they'll have access to the portal then. Now, if I go back to users, so you can see now there's a secondary user set up inside in the system here. Now, let's say in this example that Tricia Lyons has left the department or left the institution. What happens with this account? So when it comes to this portal, you do not delete the account. What you do is you make them inactive. So under administration, you'll see your list of secondary users. Click the pencil under action here. And when we click the pencil, you'll see that the status is active. To change that, click Edit. And when we click Edit, you can see here active and inactive. And when we make them inactive in the system, so we click Save. So this now makes them inactive in the system. So what happens is if Tricia Lyons tries to log into the portal, the system will block her, okay? Now, there's a really important reason as to why there's not an option to delete these users. And the very simple is it's in terms of an audit trail, okay? So you want to just make them inactive in case this user did actually create and submit some filings for you. So that's how you can actually create and also make a user inactive inside in the system. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a CRS filing in our system here. So where we start is by clicking on filings up in the menu bar at the top. And from here, we click create filing. And you'll always come into this screen and you can see that all three of these fields are mandatory fields. So you have two different options to complete a CRS or to complete a CRS filing. You have a manual entry or even XML upload. So I'm going to use the CRS manual first. So let me go CRS. We'll say France. Actually, yeah, we'll use France and we'll say 25 and we'll say our period end date. Okay, so we'll say the 31st of the 12th, 2025. I'm actually just going to put in manual there so I can distinguish this later. Now, there's no naming conventions in terms of the filing name. You can enter in anything in here, but as a recommendation, I would tell everybody, please put in something that makes sense, it's relevant to what the filing is about. So click create, and what this does is this creates the filing in the system. So you can access the filing straight away by clicking on CRS and then manual France 25, which is the name of the filing. If I created the filing, but I did not have time to complete it straight away, if I go back to manage filings, I will see a list of filings that need to be completed sitting inside in my main filing screen here like this. So I'm going to click on the filing name. And now I see my general information. So you see over here on the right-hand side, I'm going to click Edit. And inside here, I need to specify, okay, the receiving country. So inside here, I'm going to choose France. So let me just select France. The message type I'm going to say is that it contains new information. The message reference, that is generated automatically by the system. So you do not need to change anything here. Okay, so I click validate and save. And when I validate and save, it comes back to the main filing screen. And you can see there's a green tick here. Now we click add section on the right hand side. We expand our CRS report, and now we have the reporting FI information. So we click edit, and you see here document type, okay, is new data. Document reference ID, again, the system has generated this. We do not change this docref ID, and then we can just go validate and save on this form. We don't need to change anything here, as it should have picked up all the information of the initial enrollment. Now we want to add our account information. So we click the plus here. So over here on the inside in this form, so you can see here the account holder type. Okay, so if you see here in bold, do not make a selection for account holder type if it is an individual. So in this example, we're going to use an individual. I'm going to do one more of these where it's an entity. So in here, we'll just put in our details here. Okay, so we'll just make up some information here. See, tax residence. Now, even though it's not mandatory, okay, it's not mandatory field, okay, we definitely would advise to put in the date of birth. Okay, so I'm just going to change that a little bit. Okay, and we'll also put in a TIN in here as well. So again, they're not mandatory, but it's recommended that we enter this information in here. So we also want to put in the address in here. So put in 44 Main Street, and then we'll put in our country as well. Now, if I scroll it down, you can see that's grayed out, and I'll explain why that's happening in the next part of this demonstration. If I scroll it down, I can see account number. So I can add in an account number. I can put in my account balance. I have the option for account currencies. I can state whether the account is dormant or not, or if the account is closed or not. And also if there has been a payment record. And if there is a payment record, we can put in whether it's with dividends or interest, and we can say the currency, and we can also say the amount as well. Now, you can add more than one payment record. I can click add payment record like this. You see the way it adds in the payment record. If I added in an extra one by mistake, I can click delete on that. Now, when all the relevant information has been entered, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to validate and save. And this then brings me back to my main form. So you can see the account information here. Now, if I wanted to add a second account for France, I click on plus here like this. Now, I'm not going to do this in this particular example, okay? So we're just going to leave one account in here. So once all the information has been added, you're now in a position to validate and submit. So let's click validate and submit. Okay. Please note the answer is not in the right format. Okay, and that's okay. So you can see here, if anything is incorrect on the form, the validation rules will appear. Okay, now you can see your filing is warning but no errors. Okay, so you may address the above warnings, or it can continue to submit. So it's not a blocker. Okay, if I continue to submit, and now I can submit the return to the competent authority. So this is how you can create a CRS manual filing. So you can see here the submission has been accepted. I return to manage filings. And the one thing you will notice straight away is that the filing is not visible in the screen here. So once the filing has been successfully submitted, it'll disappear off this screen. If you wish to look at any of the previous filings, click on View Submissions. So if I click View Submissions here, it'll show me any of my previous submissions. So you see here, 2025. And now I can see the previous submission. Okay, so you can see that there. And if I wanted to view the data, I can't change it here. I can just view it. Okay, we can see the relevant account information. So let me just go back there on that. So, and let me go back again. And I'm back now to my main screen here. So I'm going to do another one of these. So let me go create filing again. And inside here, we're going to do another manual filing. So we'll go CRS and we'll say Germany and we'll say manual and we'll say 23. We'll enter in our period end date. So we click create. Now, before I click create, it's really important to know that when it comes to the receiving country, so you can only submit all the accounts for one receiving country at a time. So I could not put all receiving accounts for France, Germany, Italy, and so on, all in the one filing. They always have to be separated by the receiving country. So if I click create, and I can access my filing straight away. So you see in here now, so if I had any accounts where the receiving country was France or Italy, I cannot add them into this file. I'd have to have a separate filing in the system for each receiving country. So let me go edit on the receiving on the general information. Here, we're going to select Germany. Again, the message contains new information. Validate and save. And I'm going to add my section then. So expand my CRS report. I go edit. Not going to change anything here. We'll go validate and save. And now we can add the account information in here. So we're going to do something slightly different with this one. So you see here, so this time it's not an individual, okay? It's a passive non-financial entity with one or more controlling persons. Now notice when you select it, you see the way the individual fields all become grayed out. So that's a clue straight away that you cannot enter information in here. So in here, okay, we will enter in some details. So we'll say Peach Bank. So we have our entity identification number, 234. You have your tax residence as well. Okay, so we'll put in Bahamas, and then we'll put in our details in here. So let me just put in the details in there. Okay, the account number, and we'll put in our account balance, our account currency, and I'm not going to add a payment record. So if I go validate and save, notice now I'm getting a form error. So it's telling me, please note that the account holder type selected requires at least one controlling person. So I deliberately left out the controlling person here. It's just to show that when you're working in the form like this, that the system will generate or will check it when you go to validate and save. So if I go close, you see here, add controlling person. So I can pick any one of these, okay? And inside here, we will add in our controlling person. So we see here, tax residence, okay? And we'll just fill in the mandatory fields just to speed this up a little bit. So now, once I have the controlling person in, if I validate and save, And see the way now it comes back. So the system, as I said, is designed, those validation rules are built into it. Now, if I wanted to add another account, I could click on the green plus. So I'll add one more. Okay, this time I will use an individual. So we'll just very quickly, okay, add something in here. And we'll add in a date of birth. Okay, and we will, I'm not going to fill out all the mandatory fields here. So let me just, Bahamas, we'll put in information in here. And we'll validate and save then. So I just want to show you what it looks like when there's more than one account. So you see the way here, you have Peach Bank, Tom Evans. So I can keep clicking plus to add the accounts manually. Now, just so you know, there is a limit when you're using the CRS manual option. So the most accounts you can add here is 50, okay? Anything more than 50, you have to use the XML format. So just be aware of that. When it comes to the CRS manual entry, the manual number of accounts you can add is 50. Once we have all the information in, and it's all validated, you can see our green ticks here, we can validate and submit. Okay, so I have some warnings, that's fine, okay. Oh, I've one error, controlling, oh yeah. So, and that's fine, you can see here, okay, you, again, if there's validation errors, the system will stop it. You as an entity can actually export out those. So if I go back, let me go into the account here. So let me go to Tom, let me go to Peach Bank. I can click edit. If I scroll it down, okay, and let me pick Germany here. And we'll validate and save. And we'll see now, oh, tax residence, sorry, I should have changed that as well. Let me go back in. And I'll just change that to Germany. Perfect. Okay. So let's validate and save on that. Now, just so you can see, when you go back into a filing, if there has been errors and warnings, you'll see this triangle here, and it tells you the number of errors and warnings that exist. So let's go validate and submit. Hopefully this will fix the issue. Okay, yeah, I have 3 warnings. That's okay. Okay, click continue to submit, and I click submit again. So this is how we can have more than one account using the CRS manual option. Okay, again, if I go to view submissions, and I go to 2023 in this example, I should be able to see that option then, or the filings there. Okay, and you can see it. Okay, so we've done CRS manual. Now we want to take a look at the CRS XML upload option. So inside here, what we're going to do is, just bear with me, I just want to check the years. So we'll try 2024. So we create a filing. Now notice, when you're doing an XML upload, you must select this option here, CRS XML upload filing. So I'm going to put in CRS France, we'll say XML, so I can very quickly differentiate it. And then I'll put in my period end date. So I'm going to click create, and I go straight in to the filing here. Now notice straight away, when you do an XML option, there's no edit options over here on the right hand side. Everything you're going to do is going to be contained in that XML file. So if we click upload data, it comes up with a new dialog box, and now you select your XML filing. So inside here, let me just look for the correct file. So I'm going to use, I I think I put in 24, I did. Okay, so let me use this one here. Now, once it uploads the XML file, it will begin the processing of that XML file straight away. And what happens is that all the validation rules that have been outlined by the OECD, they are built into the system. So it's now checking that XML file against all those rules. And if it passes, it is automatically submitted to the competent authority. If it fails any of them, okay, then it'll stop it. Like what you saw with the manual option, the XML filing needs to be corrected and you re-upload the filing again. So let's click done on that. Okay. Now you'll see it might take a little bit of time. Okay, I'm getting errors and warnings here. Now you can see that, that's okay. If you want to check it, click on the errors and warnings. And you can see they're all warnings. It's just in relation to the TINs. Okay, controlling person is missing, individual account holder is missing, and so on. But that's fine. Again, you have the option to export out all the warnings if you wish. Now, if I go back, okay, so we can see the filing status is accepted here. It's accepted, but it also knows there are warnings with it. Now, if I go back, and let me go back to my main filing screen, okay, we can see there's no filings in here. So if there was an actual error, like a blocker, then that filing would stay in the system here. Now, if I go to view submissions, and if I click my drop down and I select 2024, I can see the filings that have been submitted. So you can see here, Dear CRS France XML. If you look at the status, you can see accepted, but you can also see there's been warnings attached to it as well. So this is how you can create your CRS XML filing. Now, it's really important to stress this. So if I had an XML filing for France, I cannot have accounts for Germany, for Italy, and so on in that XML. Again, just because it's XML, it doesn't mean you can lower or you can have one file with every account. Okay, you still need to create a separate filing for France, you still need to create a separate filing for Germany, and so on. So just be really aware of that when you're dealing with the CRS filings. They are country specific when you're creating the filings in the system. So we have those two filings done. Okay, so let me just bring back up the here. I just want to just double check just in case there's anything in the chat. Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure. Yeah, there's loads of questions coming in. That's great. Okay, no issue with that. We will get time there to look at them. Yeah, so that's fine. Let me just minimize there. I'm just really checking to make sure everybody can still hear me okay. So let's go create filing. Okay, this time we're going to use the FATCA filing. So we'll use Apple and we'll say FATCA filing and we'll say 25 here. So inside here, we'll put in 31st to the 12th, 2025. So again, you have two options when it comes to US FATCA filing. Okay, so you can have the manual entry or you can have the XML entry. So let's click create on that. Let's go straight into the filing. The structure is quite similar in the system as it is for CRS. So you see here you have general information. We click edit. So we're going to say new data. Again, there's a message reference that's been generated by the system. Don't change anything there. So let's go validate and save. And now we can add the section for the accounts. So again, let's expand. You can see the reporting FI information. Click edit. Okay. Now inside here we have new data, the docref ID. We have the filer category. So we'll just pick one of the filer categories there. We have the address. Now, we do have this option, does this return represent a nil report? I will come back to that. There's something very specific we have to do there if there's a FATCA nil report. So I will come back to that later in the demonstration. So inside here, we'll go validate and save. And now we can go to the account information. So inside here, we click the green plus. Okay, so we will put in the 2s here. So I think that's 789. Okay, we put in the United States in here. We'll enter in the details then. Okay, so we'll just put in some details here. Okay, we'll make up a date of birth again, and just bear with me. Actually, you can see here on the calendar, just to point this out in the system, because if you actually hold down the left-hand mouse button on the double arrows, you can see the way the years will appear. See, like that. Okay, if I hold it down, so you see the way you can change it as you're going through like that. So it's just a small tip in terms of using the calendar there. Okay, so here, okay, we'll enter in our details, okay, and we'll put in the Bahamas, scroll it down, and again, we'll enter in some account details in here. So we'll just put in here, we have our currency. Okay, again, we can state whether the account is closed or if we want to add a payment record. Now, I'm not going to worry about the payment record here. So we'll just delete that, validate and save. Again, okay, it's any of those rules, validation rules, they're being checked against. You can see here we have our green ticks. So click validate and submit. And it's saying it's been validated and can now be submitted. So we click submit on that. And we'll return to manage the filings. So you can see that's how we can enter in a FATCA manual filing. Very similar as well to the CRS. When you're doing a manual option, there is a limit of 50 accounts you can add per filing. If it's more than that, then really you should be using the XML filing technique at that stage. So let me go create filing again. Right. And I do want to check bear with me everybody, just for a second. I just want to see the FATCA filing, we'll say 23. Okay, so let me just go back into the system here. We'll create another filing. Okay, and this one we'll do the FATCA XML option. So you can see when you're creating any filings in the system, the process is very, very similar. So you'll enter in your filing name. So we'll say FATCA and we'll say XML. And I think, did I say it was 23? I've actually forgotten. Yeah, we'll say 23. So we'll say 23 there. You must select the filing type. So you see there in this case, it's the FATCA XML filing. Okay, and we'll put in 2023 here. So click create. Again, it creates the filing in the system. If I click on it, and like with the CRS XML, I don't get the option to edit anything. Everything should be contained in the XML filing. So click upload data. I'll choose my file, and I'm going to select the XML file here. So very similar again. Once you upload the XML filing or the XML file, it will begin the processing straight away. And if there's any errors or any issues with that filing, it will stop it from being submitted to the competent authority. If everything is okay, so if it passes all those validation checks, what will happen is that the filing will be automatically submitted to the competent authority. If I click done, and again, it's beginning to process the filing now, okay, so everything looks to be okay, all right, so you can see here, see there, so US FATCA filing, so I've different types here, okay, and that's all okay, and that's been automatically submitted now to the competent authority. If I go to back, Okay, see the way there's no filings here. So this is always a good clue for yourself when you're working with, particularly with CRS and FATCA filings. If there's any issues on the XML uploads, you'll know instantly if they have been submitted, because if they are still sitting here, okay, then you know there's an error. You'll probably see it under the status column. If I go to view submissions, I can look for my previous submissions. So if I go to 2023, I can see the filing. So I can see FATCA XML and I can see Germany manual 23 as well. So I'm going to click back on that there. Okay. Okay, so we've now gone through CRS manual, CRS XML. We've also gone through FATCA manual and FATCA XML there. So let me just go, we just check where we are in our list of, yeah. Okay, so let's say we wanted to amend data in an existing CRS filing, okay? So we've already submitted the filing, and we've realized now that maybe we needed to change some of the information in that filing. So you cannot just go back to the filing that was submitted and just edit it, okay? You actually have to create a new filing. So what I would recommend in this instance, so if you're actually going to correct data that was previously submitted, is to have two tabs open. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to open up another tab, see, like that. So you'll have two tabs open, okay? So let me just go to filings here. I will look at that regulatory hub later in the demonstration. So with these two tabs, the first tab I would use is to look for the original filing that was submitted. So inside here, I think it was on 2025, and we have, I make a change here on this CRS manual France filing. So let me just go into that filing there. So let me just expand out these, okay, and you'll see why in a second. Okay, so I'm just going to expand out. So this is the filing I've already submitted, but I want to make a correction too. So if I go to my filings page, I'm going to create a new filing. Okay, and I'm going to put in CRS France, okay, 25, and I'll say correction. I'm going to pick CRS manual entry filing, and I have the same period end date, so the 31st of the 12th, 2025. So I'm still creating a new filing in the system. So I've now created the filing. Let me go into that filing then. So when you are making a change, if I go to edit in general information, so I pick my receiving country and I'm going to pick France here, but it is the message type. See here? So this message doesn't contain new information. It contains corrections for previously sent information. So I'm going to select that option there. So when you are doing a correction, okay, you create a new filing, you pick the receiving country, but on the message type, you must select this option. The message contains corrections for previously sent information. Leave the message reference here. We do not change that. Go validate and save. And it brings me back to the main filing page. So now I'm going to add my section for the CRS report. Now, if I go to my reporting FI information, so let me click edit on that, and notice straight away the document type. So it's gone from new data to corrected data. The docref ID I don't change, but if you notice over here on the right hand side, it says if the data represents a change, please enter the corresponding docref ID here. So what I need to do is, and this is why I would recommend you have two tabs open. Go back to the original filing. You see the reporting FI information? Click view. And inside here, There's the Docker ID. So if I select it, copy it, Control and C, or you should be able to right click and copy, go back to the new form, you see here, so you're pasting in here the Docker ID of the original filing. Paste it in. One thing to watch out for when you copy and paste in the system, and sometimes it depends on the browser, is that it might add a couple of extra spaces after the Docker ID. Just watch that. You might have to backspace once or twice just to take out those extra spaces. So once we've that in, click Validate and Save. Okay. Now, in the account information, okay, I'm going to click the plus. Again, look at the document type here. It's telling me it's corrected data. It has a Docref ID, but now I need to pull in the Docref ID on the original account that was submitted. So let me go back to the original submission. I'll expand my details here. So on the account information, let me go to View. See, here's the Docref ID. Again, if I triple click, I can select it or use your mouse and drag over. Paste it in. Again, just watch out. Sometimes it'll take in an extra space through no fault of your own. And inside here now, okay, we need to enter in the details. So we can see here, Lucy Evans, okay, and I'll actually just pull in that date of birth there, just copy and paste it in. So you see here, okay, so I'm going to enter in the details. Okay, I'll just put in the 92789. I think that's right. Okay, and then we have 44 Main Street. Okay, so let me just put in that. And I'm going to put in all the details again in here. And then I'm going to put in the account number. So let me just pull in some details here. And I'm going to make a change, okay, on the account balance. Okay, so we'll say 700,000. We'll say the dollar. Okay, I think I had a payment record in. I did. Okay, so let me go back in here, add the payment record, go dividends. Okay, US dollar. Okay, and we'll put in 20,000 in here. Go validate and save. Okay, and now we're ready to submit. So just to recap there, so it's, I would advise, okay, to have two tabs open. Have one tab with the original submission, and the reason being is you can get the respective Docref IDs. Okay, so then in the new filing, you need to pull in the Docref ID on the reporting FI information. See here, and I'll just validate and save on that. And you also need to pull in the Docref ID on the account information as well. So you can see that has been entered in here as well. So I'll validate and save, validate and submit. And I can submit that. And that now submits that corrected filing back to the competent authority. So if I go back to my filings, we'll go View Submissions. I'll pick 2025. And you can see here, France correction, and you see manual France. So we have two filings in place there, okay? So that's how you can do the corrections in for CRS. So as I said, you don't technically have to do it by having two tabs open, but for me, it's just it's a good way of actually pulling in the relevant Docref IDs that you need to create that corrected filing. Okay, let me just go back to our filings here. Now, you'll notice, you see here, so you get notifications. So as a portal user, you will actually get notifications for any of the filings that you have submitted. So you can see them there. Again, to dismiss any of the filings, click the check boxes, okay, and you see the way all these notifications will disappear off the screen. So I'm actually going to get rid of a good few of these here just so we don't have too many on it. Okay. And you can see these are the ones that we have actually focused on so far today. Okay, so let me go back into filings. Now, before I do that, I also want to show something as well here on the screen. So if I go to my emails, so every time you submit a filing, you will get an email. See there? So obviously the name will be different, but you'll get something like this. So you can see there has been successfully submitted. Okay, you can see here, successfully submitted. Okay, successfully submitted with warnings. And if it fails, and we'll see this probably later on in the demonstration, you will also get another email or an email stating that it was unsuccessful. Okay, so that you get all email notifications when you're actually submitting your filings to the competent authority. So the next one that we want to take a look at is the change of reporting entity information. So let me go create filing here like this. So let's say there's been a change with the reporting entity information. Maybe something like the address has changed, for example. So if I come in here and I'll just put in Apple Bank and we'll say info change. So we select change of reporting entity information. On the period end date, we just select yesterday and we click create. So let's access that particular filing. And we go to edit. So we click edit now on the change of reporting entity information. So you can see here, these are the details that you can change on this particular filing. So you can see here, I'll just change that. Okay, and I'll say, let's say the address has changed. Okay, so we'll say 238 2nd Street. Okay. And if I wanted to, I can add an attachment here. So just go back up one level and up one more. So just add the declaration file as an example. So you can see you could actually change the entity type if that changed as well. I'll go validate and save. And now I'm ready to submit the filing. So you can see the green ticks here. Validate and submit. And we click on submit for that. Okay, and we click submit. Okay, so when you do a reporting entity information change, the competent authority must actually review it and approve it. And when the filing is approved, as you can see on the screen, you will be notified by email. So you'll get an email notification letting you know that the filing has been approved. So that's what a reporting entity information change will allow you to do. We're also going to take a look at the reporting obligations change. Now, what I mean by that is this. So let's say initially, in this example, we've enrolled to report for FATCA and CRS. And if I want to check that, if I go to the reporting entity management and go to my reporting entity profile, I can see my reporting type. See there? So CRS and FATCA. But let's say hypothetically, I also want to report for CBC. Okay, so to do that, I go to my filings. I will create a filing here. And I go to change of reporting obligations. So I'm going to say Apple and we'll say reporting ob change. So we'll put in our period and date. We click create. And it creates the filing in the system then. So what happens is that when we create that filing, and we come in, now we have the option to change our reporting obligations. So if we click edit, so inside here, okay, so we can see our reporting obligations or CRS and FATCA. If I click add and pick CBC, okay, And if I go to the documentation, and I'll just add a PDF there for that. Okay, so this is how I can change the reporting obligations. So if I click on validate and save, and now I can validate and submit. So this is now submitting this filing to the competent authority. So I'm going to click submit. Okay, and the filing has been accepted. So let me just go return to manage filings, and I just want to see, is the change instant now? It's possible it might take a little bit of time for it to come through. Yeah, that's okay. Let me just go back there. So we've now added CBC to CRS and to FATCA as well, just by doing the change reporting obligations like that. Okay, so we're going to do a couple of more filings, and we'll take a break in approximately 10 minutes. Okay, so I think it's about 12:15 your time. So we'll take a break at around 12:30 for about 10 minutes. We'll come back and we'll finish off the rest of the session then. So let me go to create a filing. And so what we want to do is this time, okay, we want to do a CRS nil filing, okay, or sorry, CRS filing summary, okay. So what we will do is this. So we'll go Apple CRS filing summary. So this is when we've actually completed all our CRS filings, we've submitted them all to the competent authority, and we want to send a filing summary as well here. So what we'll do is we will put in the 31st of the 12th, 2025. We click create. And again, it generates this filing in the system. So if you see here, there's the filing. We go into it, and we have our general information. So, oh, sorry, I picked the wrong filing. My mistake, everybody. My mistake. I actually selected the wrong one. So let me just go back out and create another one. Sorry, no. So let me very quickly create the filing there. I was actually going to do something slightly different. So let me go back in to create the filing. I selected the wrong filing type. See there? So it's CRS filing summary. So CRS filing summary, we'll say 2025. And we'll put in our period end date. So let me put in the correct period end date. So all I did was I selected CRS filing summary, click create. We'll go into the filing summary then. So if I click edit on the filing summary, now what this does is it shows a list of all the reportable jurisdictions and all the reportable counts when you look down along. Now for 2025, we can see I've one here for France. If I look down along, so obviously the more accounts I have for each one of these jurisdictions, I'll see this number change. Now I validate and save. So with a filing summary, you don't actually have to physically change anything. Once you go validate and save, you can go validate and submit, and that submits the filing summary. Okay, still in draft. Okay, yeah, so that's okay actually. So you can see there, when you do a filing summary, you cannot have any CRS filings still sitting in the system that haven't been submitted to the competent authority. So let me show you this. So if I go back, and it's no harm these things happen, because this is the sort of stuff that actually happens when you're actually working in the portal anyway. So let me go back here, and you can see, okay, there's the filing summary. So I'm actually just going to delete that. I created this one by mistake. So I'm going to just click delete there. I'll confirm that. And I'll go back to my manage filings. So as I said, no harm that happened. So you can see with the filing summary, you cannot have any other CRS filings sitting inside in the system. If I go into my filing summary now, I should be able to validate and submit. Oh, why is that? That's interesting. Might be just a timing issue there, everybody. Yeah. So I'll come back to that. It might just be a timing issue on that one. Okay. So what we're going to do is this. Okay. Let me just open up. Yeah. So I want to show a CRS nil filing. Okay. So what I want to do is I'm going to change the entity that I'm working in the portal. So let me up here. If I click here and max investments. So this, if you are a primary user that's been enrolled in for a number of entities, this is how you can change the entity. Just click on the entity here, type in, and then you can select. And that will change the entity that you're actually working in. So let me go to filings. Okay. Go to create filing. Okay. And I want to do a CRS manual entry. So I want to do a CRS nil filing. So go CRS nil filing, and we'll say max, which is the name of the entity, and we'll put in the year like that. So let's put in the 31st of the 12th, 2024. Click create, and we can go straight to the filing then. Okay. Now, under general information, we're going to select edit. Now, here's the first thing. When you're doing a nil filing, the receiving country is the Bahamas. Okay, so just remember that when it's CRS nil filing, okay, we need to put the receiving country as Bahamas, but we also want to say the message advises there is no data to report on the message type. So for a CRS nil filing, receiving country is Bahamas, the message type is that there's no data to report. Validate and save. Add the section for the CRS report. Go to edit for the reporting FI information. Okay. And then validate and save. So you don't have to do anything in here. Okay, we should be able to validate and save. And now we can submit. Okay, so just to go back through over that, because it's really the general information is the most important part. So under general information, select the receiving country as Bahamas, and the message type, there is no data to report. Once we have them in, okay, then add the reporting FI information. Okay. So add your section, add the reporting FI information, and now we should be able to validate and submit. So that's how you can complete the CRS nil filing. Okay, so it's really with that general information, the receiving country, okay, and also on the message type. And that's now submitted to the competent authority. Okay. Okay, let me just take a look at my setup here. And yeah, that's okay. CRS and FACA nil filing. Okay, yeah, might do that one actually. So let me just change that. So Carrick Holdings. Okay, so we've done a CRS nil filing. Okay, we also want to do a FACA nil filing. So let me go to my filings here. Let me go then to create a new filing. And I'm going to select a US FACA manual entry. Okay, so I go Carrick and we'll say FACA nil. Okay, so we'll say FACA nil. And we'll put in the 2025 again. So click create, and we'll go into the filing then from here. So under our general information, so if I come in here, general information, okay, and if I leave it as new data and validate and save. Now if I go and add my section, okay, under the reporting FI information, when we click edit, okay, we've seen this file already, okay? So you see here, so we have new data, we have the docref ID, the filer category, okay, which are all mandatory fields here. But, okay, you see here, does this return represent a nil report? So select yes, okay, and inside here, okay, I think it's just, hang on. That should have become active actually. Let me just validate and save that for a second. Oh, I think my screen has frozen. Wait a sec, everybody. Apologies. Yeah, okay. I thought it was just me for a second. Okay, so we can see here, does this return represent a nil report? So let me select what we had originally. So the document type, we'll just say new data. Now for the docref ID, okay, what we do is this. So you see up here at the top, we have the original or the document reference ID up here. Select it, copy it, paste it in here for the nil report section, and then at the end, just add a couple of digits like that. Okay, so that's really important when it comes to a nil report for FATCA. I'll delete that and just do it again. So on the document reference ID, so when you select yes here, document type, select new data, but for the docref ID, take the docref ID that's at the top of the page, copy it, paste it in here, and just add a couple of digits like that. It does not make a difference what digits we add. So just add a couple of digits there, scroll it down, validate and save. Okay, and now we validate and submit. So just to show you that one again, so because the screen just stalled actually just as I was going through it. So when we come into the reporting FI information, new data, we select the filer category, okay, we fill out our mandatory fields, but here, does this return represent a nil report? We say yes, we select new data, and then we copy the docref ID from here, paste it in here, and at the very end, just add in some digits at the end of the docref that you copied down. Once we've that done, validate and save. We can validate and submit. And now we can submit. So that's how we can actually submit that FATCA nil filing inside in the AEOI portal. And I'll go back to return to manage filings like that there. Okay, so we've just coming up to the 12:30 mark. So what I'll do is I'll actually stop there, okay? If we're ready to go at maybe 12:40, so it's just under 15 minutes. We start then at 12:40, so 14 minutes from now, okay, we'll get going. So what we've left to cover is we want to take a look at the undocumented accounts, working with the document library. We still have our CBC section. We have change of primary users, okay, and then we'll also leave time to go through any questions that I know have been coming in on the chat. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll see everybody at 12:40, which is about 13 minutes from now. Okay, so we'll talk to everybody then. Okay. Welcome back, everybody. We'll get straight into it again. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at undocumented accounts. So how do we create that filing and submit it to the competent authority? So what we'll do is we're going to go back to Apple Bank here, and we'll go to our filings, and we'll create a new filing again. So inside here, we're going to use the CRS manual entry. So I'm just going to make up a name. So as I said earlier, there is no naming convention outlined by the OECD here. It's just a recommendation that we give it a name that's somewhere relevant. So let me just put in the end of year here, 31st of the 12th, 2025, and we'll click create. So again, we create the filing in the system, and we'll go to the filing. So once we create the filing again, just bear with me while I minimize that, the Teams icon. So let's click edit on general information. And inside here, like with a nil filing, we're going to set the receiving country to Bahamas. We'll leave the message type as contains new information, and we'll validate and save. So on documented accounts, we're setting the receiving country to Bahamas. So add the section, CRS report, and we'll edit the reporting FI information here. So inside here, we do not need to change anything here. We'll validate and save, and we have the account information. Now, when we come into the account information, if we notice, there is an option here, see undocumented accounts. So here, we'll say it's an undocumented account. We're going to fill in whatever details we have here. Okay, so we'll fill in the details here. So we'll enter in a date of birth, a 10, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and we'll complete this. So just bear with me while I fill this out. Oh, put in the wrong details. So we'll enter that in. We'll have our country. We'll set that to the Bahamas. Okay, and we enter in our details in here as well. So just bear with me while I enter in some details. And we'll validate and save that. So let me just X that there. So a couple of things with this. When you're doing an undocumented account, okay, so under general information, and I'll go back into the edit, we select Bahamas, okay, and leave it as contains new information. And then when you're actually adding those accounts, so you can see here in the account information, if I go to the edit here, we must select the domestic only, see undocumented account like that. So then we enter in all the relevant details, and we'll just validate and save. From here, okay, we should be able to validate and submit. Again, similar enough, okay, in terms of the account information, if manual entry, it's up to 50 here, and then it's XML. Now, if you wanted that, you could submit a second manual account and add them in manually like that as well. That's perfectly fine. So go validate and submit. So again, it's checking any rules, any of the validations there. Just taking a little bit longer than it did before we broke. And now we should be able to submit. So let me just click submit. And that submits the undocumented account, okay, to the competent authority. Okay, and again, if I go to return to manage the filings, view submissions, and then inside the submissions, if I go to 2025, I should see the undoc in here. Yeah, and we can see it there. Okay. So that's how we can do undocumented CRS undocumented accounts inside in the portal. So the next thing I want to take a look at very quickly is this feature. It's called the Regulatory Hub. And this is a way, this feature allows the competent authority to store documents inside the portal for you to access. So what you as an entity user is quite limited in what you can do. So you can see here down the left-hand side, if I go to my portal documents, now this will be different in terms of the production environment. These are just here, just for the sample of the demonstration. So you can see you could have sample XML files. Okay, we could have guides in here. So you can see here, you as an entity, when they come in, all you can really do is select the file and you can download it by clicking on the green arrow here. Okay, you can see now on my browser, okay, I just have to does a security check, and then I can access that file then. So this is what this regulatory hub does. There can be any number of folders here. Then inside here, what you can do is you can download the files from here. See that? So select the file and click download. There's no uploading in here. There's no changing. It's really just a repository for you to take files out. So again, if there's lots of files in here, if you start typing, okay, there's near like a dynamic filter. You can see here, CCB becomes bold and highlighted. And it would, if you had 10 files in there, it would filter dynamically down to that individual file. And that is the function of the regulatory hub inside in the AEOI portal. Okay, so it's just a very quick demonstration of what that does. Select your file, click download, and that's essentially it then. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to log out of the portal, and we're going to move on to CBC. Okay, so country by country reporting. So let me just refresh the enrollment form here, because it's kind of, as you can see there, it was still logged in under Apple Bank. Okay. Now, we now want to enroll for CBC. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit there. So what we're going to do is just pull up my sheet here, and yeah, we'll make up a name for this. Okay, so inside here for the reporting entity name, okay, and we'll say Lock Holdings Limited. Now the reporting type, we'll select CBC. Okay, the entity type I'm going to use as multinational, and I'm going to enter in a GIN in here. So let me just make some changes, and then I'll put in my fiscal year end. So again, I'm just going to enter in a address. Okay, so again, and we'll type that in, and we'll put in Bahamas, and we'll put in our email address as well in here. So I called it Lock Holdings, so lock.com. And again, for CBC, we need to set up our primary user information. So we'll just enter in our relevant details in here. So just bear with me while we enter them in. So again, and we have our position. And again, for the documentation, it is a letter signed by the director. So we'll just upload. We'll just pick our letter signed. Okay, so you can see there, we're just enrolling for CBC. Now, really important, and I will come back to this. If you are already in the system for reporting for CRS or FATCA, do not complete another enrollment for CBC. And I will come back to that in a minute. Okay, so if, just to clarify that, if you are already enrolled in the system for CRS or FATCA, do not complete another enrollment for CBC. We will use a change of reporting obligations filing. So I'm going to click submit here, and that submits the enrollment. And again, okay, that is approved by the competent authority. Your primary user gets your email notification to log into the system with their temporary password. So let me just log in. So yeah, so I'll just log into the system. And let me just check the email there. It should have come through. Yeah, assigned access to the reporting entity. So here we're going to look for lock holdings and we click login. Now, notice, before I go any further, when you're reporting on CBC, you must complete an Article 3. And if you see here on the notification, I can see on your enrollment, basically a notification to tell me to complete the Article 3. I also, as a user, get an email telling me that I must complete the Article 3 notification. So what we're going to do is this. If we go to our filings, and I'm going to go to create filing, and notice now I have an Article 3. Now the system is set up in such a way that if you do not complete the Article 3 and you decided to just go and select CBC XML upload, the system will stop the filing from being submitted. Okay, so you have to complete the Article 3. Okay, so I'm just going to put in lock holdings and we'll say Article 3, R3, and we'll put in the 31st of the 12th, 2025, and we click create. So that creates the filing in the portal. We go to the filing, click edit on the Article 3 notification. Now notice here, so it's already pulled in some of the information that was submitted by you on the public enrollment form. So the activity of the notifying entity, we pick one of these options in here. Okay, so you can see here, regulated financial services, okay, commercial registration number. Okay, now, if you see here where there's ultimate parent entity, surrogate parent, and so on, okay, if you notice down here on the constituent entity information, it is currently grayed out. Okay, so if I pick ultimate parent entity, look down along, it's still grayed out. If I select surrogate parent entity, it's still grayed out. If I come and I select local filing in the framework of international exchange, it's now active. So depending on what is selected here, okay, this for the constituent entity information needs to be completed. So I'm going to leave it as ultimate parent entity. So inside here, we'll say lock international, and if I can spell this, so lock international limited, okay, and we just say sales. Now you can see these are non-mandatory, okay, so we'll just say, we'll just type in anything in here, just have a word in there. Now, you have to select the declaration here, okay, so with the Article 3, okay, it's pulling in the information from the original enrollment, and then you have to select the activity. You have to specify whether it's an ultimate parent entity or so on. Depending on what you select here, this will become active. So declaration, we validate and save, and now we can validate and submit. So validate and submit, and we click submit then. So once you've submitted your Article 3 and it's approved, you're now in a position to submit your CBC filing. Okay, so let me just check the filings here. I do want to check. Okay, we'll try one for 2024. So let's go back to manage filings, and we will create a filing then. Okay, so let's create a filing. So let me put in lock, and we'll say CBC 24. Now you will notice for a CBC filing, you only have an XML upload option. There is no manual option for CBC. So once we select the filing type, we click create. So we go to the filing type, and then in here, you can see straight away, there's no option to edit. It's just go straight to upload data. So upload data, choose your file. So we look for the file here. Okay, so it should be in this one, I think. No, wrong one. Is it in here? Yeah. So we'll try this one here. Okay. So we upload the XML file. Now, like with the XML filing for CRS and for FATCA, it begins the processing immediately. So it checks all those validation rules that the OECD have outlined. If it passes all the rules, it is submitted automatically to the competent authority. If there's any errors, okay, it will prevent the filing from being submitted. So I'm going to click done. And I actually don't know off the top of my head if this is going to pass or not. So submitted, yeah, that looks all fine. Okay, so we can see here, okay, our XML upload. Okay, you can see the filing status is accepted. Okay, and it's now actually submitted automatically. So if you remember earlier on both the CRS XML and the FATCA XML, that you never have to click validate and submit. If everything is okay, it is submitted automatically to the competent authority. If there's any issues, it will prevent it from being submitted. So if I go back here, again, I can see there are no filings in the draft filings. Go to view submissions. And if I select 2024, I can see it there. Now, let me just show something here. Okay, let me just go back. So that filing has been submitted successfully. So let me just create another filing. So as I was saying, you can only submit an XML for CBC. So here we go. We'll say CBC, we'll say 24, and we'll put in 24 again. So we're going to click create. And I'm going to see, can I generate a deliberate error here? So if I upload the data, choose the file, and I'll actually select the same one. Okay. So again, as soon as you upload, it starts processing the file, checking all the validation rules. I click done. Okay, so it's now kind of checking the rules. Okay, it's refreshing the screen here. Now we can see it didn't submit. See the difference this time? Because I have errors and warnings. So, and I only did this deliberately. So let me just go back out to draft filings so you can see it in the system. So notice here, so in draft filings, you can see CBC, look at the status, but also notice there's an exclamation mark, okay? And use an entity user in the portal can click on that exclamation mark and you can see all the issues, okay, that have been reported. So you can see here the message ref is already in use. That's totally understandable because I submitted the same XML filing already. Let me just go back. Yeah, I'll just go back a one. So you can see here unique docref IDs, okay, and also additional docref IDs. So this is what happens if there is an error, okay, is that it will prevent the filing from being submitted. And what would happen is that you would need to get the XML file, you'd need to correct it, come back into the filing. No, I don't have a correct one here, okay, and you would need to clear it. So you see clear here, and then you go upload your data again. So that's what needs to happen when you're making a correction on a CBC filing. Now what I'm going to do is, just so I don't want to leave it sitting in the system, I'm actually just going to delete it. So I'm just going to delete it out of draft filings here. Okay. So let me actually just close this because I want to go back to this. It's quite important about enrolling for CBC. And I just want to log out of this for a second. Okay. So I just logged out of the portal. I'll just refresh that. So if you remember I was saying earlier that if you're already enrolled in the portal for CRS and FATCA and you now need to report for CBC, do not complete another enrollment form. So what you need to do is you actually need to use a reporting obligation change. So let me just log into the system here. So I'm going to log into the portal. I'm just going to select an entity that should be just CRS only. So this entity is called Berry Investments. Now this was initially enrolled into the system as CRS, but now they need to report on CBC. So what happens is, if you're already reporting on CRS or FATCA, inside the portal, go to Filings, and you create a filing. Now, from here, you select the change of reporting obligations. So we'll just put in Berry Rep ob change. Okay. We put in our date, and we click create. So it's really important you select the change of reporting obligations. Click create. We'll go to that file then. So inside here, let's go to edit. Now you can see the existing information. We can see the reporting type, okay, is set for CRS, but we want to change it to CBC. So click add, select CBC. You also must upload the requested documentation. So let's upload our documentation, and we'll validate and save. So this is the bit. So you go to change the reporting obligations, and we add CBC in here. So we validate and save, and validate and submit. All right. We click submit, and that submits the change of reporting obligations to the competent authority. Now, I'm just going to log out for a second out of the system here. There might be a slight time delay, but what should happen is that the next time you log in, and just because I'm doing it instantly right now, it's possible it hasn't changed right this second, but let me just log into Berry Investments there. Okay, so let me go to filings. Okay, I create a filing. Okay, yeah, so it hasn't quite come through. But what will happen there is that once the filing is approved, okay, you now will have to complete the Article 3 notification, and then you'll be able to see and create your CBC filing as well. Okay, so just remember that if you're already enrolled in the system, do not do another enrollment for CBC. Just go into your portal and do a change of reporting obligations. Okay. Okay, another thing I do want to illustrate, okay, is with CRS and a change to NRFI. So let me just change the entity to Peach Bank. So Peach Bank here. And I do want to check something on the reporting entity management page. So this is a handy, this is convenient here. If you click on the reporting entity management, you can see the reporting entity profile, and we also have, okay, you can see CRS here, but notice CRS non-reporting financial institution is set to no. So let's say the entity has already been enrolled into the system, and it was originally set to yes, okay, oh sorry, originally set to no, that it wasn't a non-reporting financial institution. If you need to change it from a reporting financial institution for CRS to non-reporting, you also need to complete a change of reporting obligations. So if we see here, oh, wrong tab. If I go to my filings, I create a filing, change the reporting obligations. So I'll say Peach Bank Rep Ob change. I'll put in a date, click create, and I go into my filing then. Okay. So I'm going to click edit. Now here, if we see here, CRS non-reporting financial institution, change that to yes. Okay. Entity type, okay, pick something here. Okay, so that's really important. If you are changing it, don't forget you have to change the entity type as well. So we'll upload our documentation and we click validate and save, validate and submit. So that's just something to be aware of. If it's originally registered for CRS reporting, but you want to change it to non-reporting FI, you'd need to do a change of reporting obligations in the system there. Okay, now let me go back to filings. So let's say we wanted to change the primary user. So hypothetically, the primary user has moved on or moved to a different department or a different institution, and you want to change that primary user. So what we can do is this. We create a filing in the portal, and if we look down along, we can see primary user change. Notice, okay? So in here, we'll go Peach Bank, and we'll say PR change. We'll spell it correctly, and we put in the date. So click create, and we'll go into our filing then. So we click edit. So you need to put in the existing primary user information. So I'm going to put in the, now I'm actually going to make a deliberate mistake here, hopefully. And we'll put in financial controller, and then you enter in the new person's details. Okay, so we'll put in the details like this. Financial controller, and again, you need to upload the letter signed by the director. So let me just upload that. So you have to enter in the existing primary user details. We then put in the new primary user, including the relevant documentation, validate and save, okay? And now we validate and submit. So we go to submit this filing to the competent authority. Now notice it's coming back with an error. Why is it coming back with that? It's because the email address that I entered did not match what was actually submitted on the original enrollment. So let me go back. Let me click edit. So I'm going to change this now. Okay, so let me put in the correct email address, validate and save. Okay. Validate and submit. And now I can submit the filing to change the primary user. So that would submit the filing. The competent authority, okay, will approve it. Once it's approved, okay, the original primary user, they're deactivated in the system. And then the new primary user will get that email notification with the URL to the portal, their temporary password, and then they log in and then they can change. Okay. Now, a secondary user can submit a primary user notification change. So just be aware of that. Okay. So if there's a primary user and a secondary user and the primary user leaves, the secondary user can submit the primary user change notification. Okay. Okay, so that's the primary user change notification. One thing I know, I checked up about the 2FA. I don't have an example of it here on this particular environment, but I was asking the team. I know there were some issues, but one of the most common issues was in relation to the time, and they were suggesting that if you're using 2FA and you're using your phone, that just make sure the time on the system matches what's on your phone. Okay, so that they reckon that some of the issues were as a result of that. So that's one thing just to be aware of with the 2FA. Now, I'm actually going to go through the questions. Okay, so did that stop recording? No, I don't think so. That's a AI thing. Okay, so let me just go back to the very start here. Let me go through the questions. Okay, so unable. Okay, much clear. Yes, yes. Okay. Still not hearing it. Okay, noted. What about? Okay, is that so? There's a question here. Noted for FAC and CRS. What about country by country reporting? I take it that's in relation to the enrollment. If there's another question maybe in relation to that, okay, just maybe type it into the chat. I'll pick that up at the end. Otavia, is it? I think is the name. You selected no for CRS non-reporting FI for TDT, but TDDs are non-reporting FIs for CRS. I'm not 100% sure. I think that's probably more of a competent authority question. I don't know, Andrew, do you want to take that or?
Yes. Regarding that question, you have to by the OECD definition of financial institutions, which is in local legislation. And if you look at the latest news on the tax website, there's
Sorry, Andrew. I don't know if it's just, yeah, there's a really bad echo, actually. So I'm not sure, is that me or is it everybody else? So.
Hear me?
Let me just.
Can you hear me?
It's still a bad echo. I can hear you, Andrew, but there's a bad echo actually on it.
So we actually had an echo while you were on the presentation as well. I don't know if it's not this.
Yeah, I'd say maybe if you can mute one, maybe if you have two items open.
Did you check it? Just hello, Hugh. Alan, sorry.
Yeah.
Better?
It's still an echo for me, Andrew. No, sorry. I'm not sure is it the same for everybody else. Maybe if someone else. I take it, Samantha, you're replying to Andrews. If you can still hear, still an echo. Yeah. Okay.
Alan, is this better?
A little better. I think there's still an echo there, but maybe just continue talking, Andrew, and see, can we hear you?
Yes, regarding the question,
yeah.
Please reference the latest news on the tax website. The competent authority has issued some guidance on non-reporting financial institutions, and within the legislation, there's the definition of non-reporting financial institutions. So you have to be guided by that definition, and also, you should know that if the TDT is filing, it's done by the trustee FI. So, this session is really focused on the reporting procedures. So you'd have to take that up. You could send an email to the box, but that's more of a policy question. But you could be guided by those two documents, the local legislation, the latest news that has some recent guidance on that subject.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. We could hear you clearly there. Okay, great. So next question is from Natasha. If an institution has more than 100 FIs to register in the portal for CRS or FATCA, can the institution send a signed letter by the directors requesting that all 100 FIs can be registered in the portal and users assigned? I'm not sure, is that a legal question or a system question, Andrew? I mean,
Well, it's a system question because what I think with what the question is really getting at is bulk registration.
But yeah. So at the moment, there's not a bulk registration facility available. So unfortunately, if you have 100 FIs that need to be registered, okay, if it's the same primary user, that's okay, but you still need to complete the enrollment. Okay, next one. I note that a TDT is an option where you select yes or no for CRS non-reporting FI. This is confusing. I have a feeling, Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, this kind of refers back to the previous question about, and the latest news. So,
right,
okay,
go ahead.
That's fine. Question 2 from Natasha. Why did you register an entity in the portal for CRS with a GIN? I only done it just to complete the form. I know you don't have to have a GIN. I don't know, Andrew, have you guidelines in relation to that? If it's CRS only, are they expected to put in GINs? But if
it's not applicable
if they don't have
CRS, only if it's FATCA.
Yeah. No, that's okay.
So, clearly if you're doing both, then you need the GIN.
You need the GIN,
For FATCA.
Okay, that's great. What about nil filings for CRS? Where are those submissions to be made? So I think looking at the time of the question, I'd say you asked it before I covered it, so that should be covered from what we demonstrated in the last hour. Next one. Can you clarify? You said you can add more than one report to a specific country. What do you mean? Sorry, I think that's probably the other way around. So if you have accounts for France, Germany, and Italy, you cannot put them all in one filing. So it has to be one report per specific country. Okay, so if whatever accounts you have for France, they go in one filing. Whatever accounts you have for Germany, that goes in a separate filing. Whatever accounts you have for Italy, that goes in the third filing. You cannot put them all into just one filing. It has to be done country specific. Okay. Let's go down. Are TIN numbers mandatory or not? Alan said it was not mandatory as there was no red asterisk to it, yet the competent authority sent out notices stating that this was a requirement for individual account holders and controlling persons. So I think, Andrew, I'll let you maybe pick up this one.
Yeah. This is a very good question. And, hopefully, I see we have 181. At one point, we had a maximum of 203, but I hope everyone could really listen to my response here, because this is very important. The technology system is set to meet the OECD schema standard. So within the OECD schema, TIN is not mandatory because some countries do not have TINs. But if the country you're reporting for has a TIN, you've gathered that, and you should have gathered that in your onboarding process, then it's really important for you to insert that TIN, in the field. The technology system, is set to give a warning, as Alan mentioned, if the TIN is incorrect, is in the incorrect format. But this all leads to the quality of data and the data that the financial institutions are inputting in the input screens, because the data that you are inputting in the screens are transferred to the partner jurisdictions. The partner jurisdictions have highly sophisticated automated systems that check the data that's received. So if the data that the financial institutions are sending does not include TIN, date of birth, complete address with house number, full name, inclusive of the middle name, then this raises concerns about what type of information is being gathered from the financial institutions. So in the last reporting year, the competent authority made an effort to check TINs and date of birth to make sure before the portal closed that we had those fields completed. And this year for the 2025 tax year, more extensive checks will be made, and now the legislation allows penalties to be applied. So the information that you put in on the input screens is really critical. The screens are set to meet the OECD standards, and some fields are mandatory and some are not. But if you're a receiving country and you're receiving information, from the Bahamas, and you see that TINs and date of births are not in there, then it raises concern. So that's why we emphasize in all the communications that even though these fields are not mandatory in the OECD schema for the OECD reasons, you really have to pay attention to make sure that you're putting in the complete address and the full names with the middle name, so that the receiving countries can identify and associate the information that they're receiving with the relevant parties. This is really critical. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
You can go ahead.
Yeah. So I think the next two questions are pretty similar. So first one is, where can one find the template for the XML file? And could you please provide an XML example for FATCA and another for CRS? So I know the XSDs and the schemas should be available from the OECD and from the IRS websites. I don't know, Andrew, do you provide sample files, or is that down to each individual entity?
Yes, it's down to the individual entity, but we have a section on the tax website on data preparation.
Okay.
You'll see it on the FI information tab at the top on the tax website. And there's links there to the OECD and the IRS for FATCA in terms of XML schemas.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Andrew. Okay, next one. Question, could we explore the possibility of implementing an Excel-based macro solution with inbuilt XML conversion for the Bahamas portal, similar to the approach used for Cayman? Not quite sure how to answer that. I think that's probably more of a product question in the future. At the moment, I don't think there's anything like that in the pipeline. But again, Andrew, if you might be,
yeah, no,
you might have something to add here.
It's not an option at the moment, so it won't be applicable for this year.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Okay, if filing for a TDT for FATCA, is a GIN required for the TDT? As far as I'm aware, TDTs are not required to have its own GIN, as its filings are being made by its trustee. So whose or what GIN is to be used? So I might just take those questions first, Andrew. That sounds more. Yep.
No, I think you've answered that, and then they can go to the IRS website. They have frequently asked questions and a lot of details, and we also have those links in the communication that we send to the financial institutions.
Yeah. Okay. Next one, as regards corrected filing. So if a filing was made under entity A, but should have been made under entity B, can you now file under entity B as a corrected filing for entity B, or do you have to make a new filing under entity B and request that the filing made under entity A be deleted? That is a good question. I would think. Let me just open this up here for a second.
Alan, while you're answering this, I also think it'll be useful to, I don't know if you want to go back into the filing screens, but show the listeners additional filing options outside of correction filings for CRS and FATCA. For relevant to previously submitted files, for example, void or amended or deleted, so they could be aware of those.
Yeah, let me just create one here. Let me actually just open up another tab. I'm thinking now with the two different entities. Let me just come back here. I might have to double check that, but I would think, see, if you've done entity A, I would think you'd have to log into entity B and create a new filing and then do the deletion filing from entity A. So let me, but I might have to clarify. I'll have to double check that just to be 100% sure. It is a really good question, actually. So let me just go view submissions here for a second. Let me check 2025. Actually, maybe I might use a different one. Let me go 2023. Okay, just apologies now. It's just taking a little bit of time for it to load. Normally it's not that slow. Okay, and it's decided to freeze. Sorry, no. Let me just resubmit it again there. Okay, so I do think you'll end up having to create a new filing for entity B, and you'll have to submit it that way. And then for entity A, let me just see here. So 2023, yeah, let me just try this. So if I go create, now I called it resend, but I think I might change that. So let me under general information. Okay, so let me pick Germany. And yeah, let me pick corrections. Let me just double check this now, folks, in relation to that question. Okay, let me just add the section. And the reporting FI. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's where I give you the option.
Sorry, Andrew. Yeah, go on.
No, I just wanted to say, yeah, those options there, you know, just to make them aware of those options when you click on the,
Yeah. So I think what you'll have to do, and to answer that question, so let me just save as draft for a second, so I'll come back out. So the first part is you can create a new filing under entity B, resubmit the filing. Then in entity A, okay, do the general information as normal. Okay, that doesn't change there, I think. So then under the reporting FI information, what you will end up having to do is pick deletion of data. Okay, and then you have the Docker FID. So if I go to the original filing, let's go view here on that. And take that Docker FID there. So I've taken the Docker FID off the original one, paste it in. Again, just watch out for the spacing there. Let's just validate and save. Okay. And then you should be able to validate and submit. Okay, so that's in terms of deletion of data. Okay, so in terms of the resend, so I know I'm using resend there. So if you wanted to resend information, let me just pick resend there. Okay, so this one is slightly different. If you're resending data, okay, for a filing that was already submitted, notice the way when you pick resend data, that Docker FID, okay, is grayed out. Okay, so you won't be using that. But if I take the Docker FID of the original information, okay, and paste it in here, see for the Docker FID here. Okay, so when you're using resend data, take the Docker FID of the original filing, paste it in. If you're going deletion of data, take the Docker FID of the filing you wish to delete, and you paste it in here. And once that is done, okay, you should be able to submit your data then. And I think, Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, just on your portal, it should be automatically approved. Is that correct?
Yes. Also,
Yeah.
also note that the person that asked the question, which is a very good question.
Yeah.
And we also insert in the notifications that we send to the financial institutions that if they made an an incorrect filing when the portal during the filing period before the files are transmitted, to send an email to help desk or information box so that we could delete the file internally. That's the first option, delete it internally, and then you could resubmit the file. Because what happens is that sometimes the financial institutions they file a correction filing on a file that hasn't been transmitted, and that causes issues in the transmission process. So, we prefer to manage that before we get to transmissions so that all the files are transmitted before, corrections are made to the filing.
Yeah. So are you saying, Andrew, just to clarify?
In short, if the files haven't been transmitted, so like this year it's June, the end of the reporting period, the portal will be open until the end of August. So, if you made a mistake in the file, then you can send a request to the help desk, and we could delete it, and then you can resubmit a new filing. So what Alan went through was relevant for previously submitted files. So like files that was submitted in previous tax years.
Yeah. Yeah. So it just show on the system. So if it hasn't been transmitted and the competent authority deleted, create your filing, and it's just a new regular filing that we would have seen. If it has been transmitted, okay, then you need to use the options here. Okay, that I've just highlighted, whether it's deletion of data or resend data. Okay. Okay, let me run through because there's a lot of questions, which is great. What payment type is to be selected if the payment is a distribution from a trust? That's definitely one for you, Andrew.
Well, you'd have to be guided by the guidance notes there.
Okay, great. Can we explore a two-part authenticator using the user email address and not an authenticator app? I think there is a way, and I can check this. Give me a second, everybody. Let me see. I thought I had it here, actually. Maybe it's in here. No. No. I had two screenshots. I think there's a way you can actually download it onto your laptop as opposed to using a phone. I have. No. Just bear with me, everybody. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I think there is something you can download. I can find out. Yeah, so you can download on your phone, email. Yeah, I know Hugh definitely told me there's a way you can do it on the laptop as well. I'll go back and just get some guidance in relation to that. So yeah, let me come back on that. I'll come up with an answer for that one. So just 2FA. Just maybe I'll note that question. Okay, is a filing summary required if the return you're submitting is a nil return? Andrew, is that required for me or?
The filing summary is not a requirement, but it's something that the financial institutions use, to monitor, their filings.
The accounts. Yeah.
So it used to, some financial institutions used to use it as a nil report, but now the
Yes.
system has the facility to file the nil report. So you don't have to use the filing summary. You could just file a nil report.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Is there a standard file format that can be used for uploading the CRS and FATCA filings using XML upload? Again, I think the guidance should be on the OECD's website, and in terms of IRS, I think we outlined that earlier with a previous question.
Yeah, those links are on the tax website under data preparation.
Okay, great. Thanks, Andrew. Question, for CRS nil filing, could you please confirm whether we can submit a filing summary indicating 0 reportable account holders, or if we should proceed with a manual filing by selecting no information to be reported and choosing Bahamas as receiving, similar to approach followed in the BVI portal? I think, is that similar to the question that was, yeah. Okay. So they can use a filing summary instead of the nil filing?
No, I mean, now we have the nil filing. So
they have to use it.
The point is with the nil filing is that it was not a requirement before in the Bahamas. So the legislation now requires nil reporting, and those guidance notes, guidance that on those subjects, non-reporting financial institutions, the new requirement for CRS nil reporting is on the latest news on the tax website. Those two the two articles at the top on the latest news.
Okay, great. Thanks, Andrew. I think these questions are kind of more or less answered. So why do we need to submit the filing summary? When the filing summary should be made? Is it mandatory to file? So I think Andrew has already answered them. Will we have some user notes for the CRS nil filing, given that this is a new requirement? Reporting we were preparing for now. Yeah, so I take it, Andrew, that's going to be part of the user guide. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was only going to say there's a user guide being updated as we speak. So I'm hoping, Andrew, maybe we might have it by the end of this week.
Yes. So everyone understands the user manual is in the final stage of an update. So this user manual will be posted on the website under portal documentation, and the updated user manual has the guidance on the new filing features such as CRS nil reporting and reporting obligations for in the enrollment form for non-reporting financial institutions and undocumented accounts. All of the previous user manuals are still posted on the site as well.
Okay, great. Thanks, Andrew. Okay, next question. For CRS manual filing, do we need to submit all accounts by country like you did for Germany, or we can submit each account individually, mean multiple submissions for a single country? So if I'm understanding the question correctly, create submission. So let's hypothetically say you have 20 accounts for Germany. You can create one filing here. Okay, you don't need to create 20 separate filings for Germany. Okay, so just remember, with a manual approach, you can add 50 accounts. Okay, but you certainly do not need, as I said, if you have 10 accounts for Germany, you don't need to create 10 separate filings here. Okay. Okay, let's go back in. Okay, for CRS filings, can a TIN number be removed from the portal after submission? And for CRS filings, can filings be removed after submission on the portal? I think the answer to that is no to both. Let me just go here for a second. I just want to check one thing, but you cannot edit any filings after you've submitted them. Okay, so if you see here, let me just demonstrate this. So if I go into, let me just go into 2025 here, and I'll pick up a CRS one. Okay, so I'll pick this one here. So if you look here, okay, you do not get the option to edit anything. So once it's submitted, that's submitted inside in the portal. So you cannot remove or edit any of that. Okay. Okay.
So you,
sorry. Yes, Andrew.
I'll just add that. I'll just add that they would have to file a corrective filing if the filing has already been transmitted, and if it has not been transmitted, for example, when we did date of birth and TIN checks before the portal closed last year, some of the financial institutions, most of them, we just simply deleted the filings and they resubmitted the filings with the correct TIN.
Okay, great. Next one, as in previous years, will there be a second session of this webinar? I think it was only last year. No, yeah, it was only last year. Yeah, that we had two. So, but this has been recorded and it will be uploaded to the competent authorities website, as Andrew has stated. If there is a Bahamas incorporated company, but with mind and management in another jurisdiction, example Bermuda, does it still need to be registered and a CRS nil return submitted?
They would have to be guided there by the guidance notes, the CRS guidance notes. I see some of that's posted on the website. So this session is focused on the AEOI reporting functionality. That's more of a policy question. So the guidance notes is relevant for that question.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. Okay, CRS XML, is there a person limit submission by country? If I have 120 persons to report to Germany, do I have to submit 3 files for Germany? Short answer is no. If you have 120 persons, you can actually create an XML file with all 120. That is fine. And you can just use the XML upload. If you are trying to do it manually, then you will need to create 3 separate filings. Okay, so you'd have the first one with the first 50, or if you want to do 40 per filing, that's fine. But if you haven't those sort of numbers, then we would always advise to use a XML filing, and you can have them all in one XML file. Okay, keep going down. Let's say nil filings for CRS is clear. Okay, 1 report per specific country for each entity. Yes, so if you're reporting for multiple entities, you need to log into each entity and submit your reports accordingly. Okay, next question. For Bahamas Incorporated Co with directors, elsewhere, example Bermuda, we file a Bermuda return. Do we also have a filing obligation in Bahamas?
Yeah, that's a policy question. Please refer to the guidance notes, CRS.
Okay. Yes, but in entity B, can you file as corrected filing using the document reference from IS and as from earlier? Using the document reference from the entity A filing, will it be reflected as a corrected filing? Why, this might be another question. Why then are you trying to change it as corrected? Because it's a different entity. So once you delete have the deletion of data for entity A, then it should just be a new filing for entity B. Not sure if that answers the question. Did the submission deadline change this year? Was it moved up to May or June? Andrew, I'll bring you in on that.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Notification has been distributed to the financial institutions, and that's very important, that the reporting period is May to the end of June. So any submissions after June 30th will be subject to penalties. So the guidance is on the tax website on that subject. There's some notifications from the competent authority that's pasted on the latest news. So it's very important for all the financial institutions to be aware of the new reporting period from 1st of May to the end of June.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Andrew. If you want to correct or delete one account information from 10 filings in one jurisdiction, from previously submitted filings, do you still need to put again the 9 filings, or we can adjust, correct, or delete that specific account information file? So you should be able to just adjust that one account. You shouldn't have to enter in all 10 again. Okay.
That's a good question.
Yeah, it is. It's a really good question. Yeah. Yes, deletion internally, but if the information has already been forwarded to the overseas jurisdiction, yes, I've had submissions deleted prior to transmission, but what if they're already transmitted? So under Entity B, you file as a resubmission and enter the document reference ID from the submission under Entity A. Oh, okay. Guidance notes does not state the payment type to be selected for distributions from a trust. Interesting. No,
okay.
I think
you know, you could also you know, when I say you, you know, the entity, whoever's the person asking that question could also reference the OECD handbook that specifies all the guidance. But you could send that question to the information or help desk email, and we'll see how we can assist. But I'm sure it's in the OECD standards. You know, because that breaks down all the payment types.
Okay. Yeah, let me double check about Entity A and Entity B as well, actually. Okay, I will come back in relation to that. Not sure do you need to do resubmission if it's Entity A. I'll have to check that. Okay, I'll just make a note of that there. Okay, and we will come back. Okay, can you confirm how we would know who is the primary user? Okay, that's an interesting question, actually. Let's see, if you go to view and edit my details on the portal. So there can, just to clarify one thing, there can only ever be one primary user. Okay, so that's very important to be aware of. Okay, so if you go up here and you go view, edit my details, and then down here, if you see there, assign permissions and roles, if you look down along, you can see the roles. So you can see what's primary user and so on and there. So it is possible within the portal to check who is the primary user. Okay. But good question. No filing summary, that saves so much time. Will the guidance notes be updated? I'm presuming yes to that. When registering the institution for CRS, the initial compliance officer's email was used as the ID. For another reporting, the last compliance officer's email was used. As the current reporting officer, I have to complete 2 sets of reporting to cover my entire client reportable database. Is there a way to consolidate? Interesting. So is the initial compliance officer not working there anymore? I'm just wondering, should that just be a change of reporting obligations, and would everything be consolidated then? Maybe I'm misunderstanding that question, but that's what I'm reading out of that the initial compliance officer is now gone. Just update the primary user to be you, and then everything you should have access then all inside the one portal. But maybe might come back in. I note that the filing period for 2025 filings is the 1st of May, 30th June. However, if the portal is now, can you submit now for 2025? Andrew, do you want to come in on? Yeah, yes. Okay, great. Is something changed this year? Because so far last year, when I used to use CRS XML with 150 names, the portal is accepting the file, but registers only the first 50 names and is not warning me. I'll have to check that. That just sounds like a technical thing. I'll have to come back on that. About that. Let me just make a note of that question. Okay, I'll make a note of that. To clarify, are we reporting as of December 31st, 2025, or end of entity's fiscal period. Andrew, I'll try to give in on that.
The tax year is the end of the year, December 31st.
Yep.
For CRS.
Yeah. Okay, I think this one is in relation to the previous one about no longer employed with the institution. Yeah, so if you're able to log in using the initial user's details or initial compliance offers, then you should be able to change the primary user to you so that you're not having to use two different email addresses to log in. There might be a little bit of work depending on how many entities they're reporting on, but I think that's probably the only way around that. Okay, is to change it from the initial compliance officer to your email address, and then all those entities will be under your email then. Last question in this, I think it's the last one. Yeah. Will you also be updating the guidance notes to ensure we can comply with the new schema? So I take it that's not in relation to, isn't 3.0 coming out later this year? I don't think the guidance notes. Yeah. So if the question is in relation to that, then the guidance notes are just updating what was there previously to what's the changes that we made in the system, like in terms of non-reporting financial institutions and so on. Okay, that's the end. Okay, oh, there's another question. Yes, next year, 2027 for 2026. Yeah, there will be. Yeah, yes, there will be.
Yeah, that's when the new scheme will be applicable for next year. So that'll be tax year 2026, as the person just inserted in the chat.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that looks like all the questions. So I know there's some questions I do need to come back on, and I will email Andrew and the team in relation to that, and they can forward on any of the responses there. If there are no other questions, I'd like to thank everybody for your attention and also the questions. Some great questions in there. And yeah, we hope to found the webinar of benefit and of interest. And thank you very much for your time today. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will, Andrew and the team will upload the recording when we send it on. And also we will come back in relation to the questions that were asked. Oh, was there a hand up?
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Alan, very much for another excellent presentation. And on behalf of the Bahamas Competent Authority for AEOI reporting, we thank you for taking the time to attend this event. Hopefully this session was helpful in understanding how to use the AEOI portal. If you have further questions, kindly contact us at the emails that's posted on the tax website, helpdesk@taxreporting.finance.gov.bs, or information@taxreporting.finance.gov.bs. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thanks very much, everybody. Bye now.